There it is.
We should be good now. Yeah, we're good. We're going.
All right, what's up, everybody? We are a couple minutes late, but we're live, guys. It's 7 o'clock. We're lines in. I'm Justin Patrick. Joining me today is my co-host David Best. Our third stooge is not with us today. He's out of town, but he'll be tuning in with us or watching. And we also have a special guest, Mr. Ashley Ault.
Yep. Thanks for having me. Yep.
Pro. And he's going to be filling us in on swim baits, hard live body and soft body swim baits. Man, we got a great little show for you guys tonight. We're excited. This is our third episode, and man, we just couldn't be more excited to be doing this. So, little details first before we dive into tonight's discussion. We want to go over, what happened this past weekend. We had the Hobie Bass Open Series event on Lake Hartwell, and we also had West Tennessee Bass Yackers event happened on Pickwick Lake on Saturday. So we'll go over those results real quick just to kind of keep you guys tuned in to what's going on. So starting with the Hobie Bass Open Series, it was, from what I heard, it seemed to be a little bit of a grinder,
Yeah.
Some
Tough fishing.
yeah. I mean, it's that time of year, fish are moving and going. You got fish suspended out there. They don't know what they want to do yet, post-spawn. And, talked to some guys that had a really good practice. We're finding some really big fish, but come tournament day, they just eluded them. But congratulations to Ewing Minor. He had a 2-day total of 174 3/4 inches for first place. Chris Grant came in second with 168.75 inches, and Matt Hall with 165.5 inches. And, congratulations to those top three guys, as well as everybody else that managed to cash a check under some pretty tough conditions. So, we didn't get a chance to go down there. David was here working at the store, had to miss his own tournament at Gunnersville.
Skipped a tournament at Gunnersville, and apparently I did not skip a bad one because they struggled to catch them down there too.
Really?
Same kind of conditions. They were catching them in practice. Come tournament day, they all struggled. They didn't do real well either. I'm still trying to fathom how you didn't do well at Gunnersville, but whatever. They had some struggles there too. So I didn't really hurt my feelings when I heard some of the totals. So I wasn't so mad about it.
If you're gonna miss.
Yeah, miss a bad hit.
Right. Well, I mean, judging from the elite guys down there right now in practice, most of them are misspelling words and don't even look. They seemed all jacked up, so I doubt they're really on them very much.
Well, I know they went from running current to they were only running like 30,000 cubic feet the weekend or less, and most of the bigger numbers were mostly at night. And then, so I noticed, so I went and looked on yesterday, and they were only supposed to run 15,000 cubic feet both days, yesterday and today. So
wow.
Them elite guys got walked into some of the worst practice conditions you could have got on Gunnersville.
Yeah.
Without doubt.
Yeah, but they'll figure them out. They always do.
Always.
But it's kind of the same deal at Pickwick. We had our stop number 5 for West Tennessee Bass Yackers on Pickwick. Hardly any current. A weekend before they were moving some pretty good current, but the day of the tournament it was pretty slick. We had some pretty good results though. First place to Ron Butler. Congratulations to him. He took it with 54.5. I was able to squeak in behind him with 54 inches and big bass. And then we had
It was Brandon Davis in third.
that's right, Brandon Davis in third, and I think he had what was it? I think around 50 inches.
It was 51 and then 50 and a half, something like that for fourth.
Yeah.
So
a lot of good numbers. Ashley, we talked a little bit after the tournament. You missed a big one.
Yeah.
But you were catching a lot of fish. What were you kind of doing to catch your fish?
I found them Friday, shallow, and this year I've tried to take that approach of I'm pre-fish just to go out and explore.
yeah.
Just like a little kid, relive those days of just going out, checking out new water. And I did. I found a bunch of fish shallow, none with any size. It was the typical cookie cutter. And I've heard that. I was fishing the north end of the lake, and I've heard that recent history. The bigger fish are not there like they used to be. But I don't tend to believe that. They're still there, but just not in the numbers they used to be. But yeah, I caught them on a Texas rig crawl, caught some on top water, caught some cranking. Caught them just about any way I wanted to, but just not the right size. You know, I probably caught a couple dozen fish the tournament day. And you know, it's always about the one that gets away.
Yeah.
But no, I did. I caught a nice fish late, hooked a nice fish late, just didn't get the picture. So, you know, that's how it goes.
Yeah, we talked afterwards, and he was yanking my chain a little bit because we're pretty much neck and neck on Angler of the Year this year. Which, by the way, Ashley Ault, was our Angler of the Year last year.
Yep.
And I mean, just had a phenomenal year. Just, I mean, always brings the limit to the check-in and just an absolute hammer. So, but yeah, it was this around this time of year. I'm starting to get excited about the offshore deal. I spent a lot of time scanning some ledges the weekend before and on Friday. They just weren't really there in numbers. I could see a few just kind of scattered about, but without that current, they just don't really want to bite very well. So Friday late in the day, practice, I started slinging a buzzbait around, some shallow stuff, and they were there. So that was my decision. I was like, I'm going shallow. Started in one area, put together a limit pretty quick on top water pop R, and then moved locations. It was catching pretty good on the swim jig, around grass and stuff. But pretty good day despite the bright bluebird sky conditions. Hardly any wind, no current or anything. If you were around them, they were biting pretty good. So.
And the boats came out.
And the boats came
out. The Pickwick, the Pickwick Armada,
Yeah.
and that Pickwick Navy was out in full
Yes.
force. I think that was their first real shot at getting out with that beautiful weather. It was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
They were out.
Yeah, they were there. Luckily, I could tell they weren't getting into the water very much yet, but that'll be soon. So,
soon enough.
Yeah, if you're out on Pickwick in a kayak, guys, just be careful. You are their last priority. I promise you that. I made the mistake of being out there too long on Memorial Day one year. That was bad. When I got back to the ramp, my hole was full of water. I mean, it was terrible. But we're here to, we got Ashley with us today. We're going to be talking about some of these giant swim baits that he likes to sling around. The guy's known, I don't want to speak for you, but a lot of times, you talk about catching them shallow.
Yeah.
I mean, springtime, this guy's a hammer. All throughout the year, he's a hammer. And a little secret he probably don't really talk a whole lot about is that this is kind of his deal. So it's something I've had interest in, Dave as well, and it's one of those things that a lot of people want to get into it, but it's kind of a big commitment, and it's one of those things unless you fully commit to it and understand the rod, the reel, the line, how to fish them, and all that kind of stuff. A lot of people kind of shy away from it. So we're hopeful that he's going to tune us in to how to fish these baits a little bit more effectively and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Man, just glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about just kind of your back history of how you got into kayak fishing. Let's start there. It's a question I like to ask.
Yeah, so I fished like a lot of folks since I could crawl. I mean, I literally, I grew up on land out in Cordova. We had a little pond. I'd kick over rocks and put things on hooks and catch bluegill and bass, and it just progressed slowly. In my 20s, I got away from fishing a little bit, quite honestly. Into my 30s, mid 30s, I'm going to say, mid to late 30s is when I found kayak fishing. I had a friend, Rusty and Todd, that would float the Wolf River, and they invited me. They had an extra kayak, my friend Rusty did, and we floated the section from LaGrange down to Bateman, and the river, if any of y'all that have fished the Wolf, the river was over 11 on the gauge.
Lord.
Yeah, so, but these guys were, I mean, hell bent on going, and so I'm like, hey, I'm along for the ride. Caught 2 fish that day. I caught the only 2 fish on a spinnerbait, little spots, but since that moment, I was hooked, honestly. I mean, that's all it took, just to catch a fish from that perspective, sitting that low to the water. And I'd fished in canoes, I'd fished in john boats, little water scans. you know, but it was just to be by yourself in that boat is what got me hooked. I then started, I mean, it wasn't 6 weeks later, I went and bought an Ascend from Bass Pro Shop, shoved it in the back of my Forerunner somehow, and you know, the window rolls down. So, and then 6 months after buying that kayak, I'm in a Coosa.
Yeah.
And the rest is history from that. I spent a lot of time those first couple of years floating the Wolf, catching spots and largemouth, and just getting back into it. And then I found West Tennessee Bass Yackers on Facebook, and through CJ and Matt Skelton. God, love them. And
How many guys were fishing at that point?
the first tournament I showed up to at Browns, I'm gonna say 15, maybe 15. And just open arms, you know, running into these people, showing up at the ramp, no idea who these guys are. A guy named Bronson Locklear, I'll never forget, I run into him, and he was just so welcoming. Hey, Bronson, and that's what I love about this club, and about the kayak tournament fishing scene. It's really, you could say a brotherhood, a sisterhood, you know, with the Christine Fishers of the world, right? But, you know, just the bonds are amazing. So that's what's really drawn me to it and kept me in it. It truly has been an outlet for me. So, yeah, I guess I kind of rambled on there for a minute, but
no,
you get the point. So.
Yeah, no, it's good. Yeah, man, it's you hear that so often, time and time again. It's just, you know, and I think it's a kind of an aspect. You know, we're in these smaller boats. You know, you gotta look out for each other. You gotta look out for the Russell brothers, you know, falling asleep in the water. Right. You better keep track of him. That's like Trent's showing up to weigh in late. We're not gonna let that one down, Russell. It's always a compliment. But no, I mean, it's just, you know, you look out for each other. I mean, I find myself all the time just kind of checking around, making sure everybody's good, you know, because I mean, things can happen, you know, in a blink of an eye, you know. So it helps to have, you know, that awareness of your guys and stuff, and your girls. But
yeah, and it's competitive, but at the same time, I'll never forget fishing those first few tournaments. You know, I really came in with the mindset I didn't want to have. I mean, I could talk to somebody, but it wasn't about that for me at that point. It was like, okay, I'm competing. I'm gonna, you know, I want to catch the largest fish. But as you get into it, it's like, you know, wait a minute, it's not just about that. Yeah. And you'll stop, and I've gotten better over the last 4 or 5 years as I've fished with this club, just to relax, kick back and chat with folks on the water. Yeah. Right in the middle of the tournament, it doesn't matter. Just take that time and relax about it. So I've learned a lot when it comes to that on the competitive side. So
you kind of talked about that a little bit, that difference between, you know, the bass boats. You know, you got that brotherhood.
Humongous difference between the bass boat scene and what we do in the kayak scene. You know, one of the things in the kayak scene that I mean, even going like to the Hoagies and that kind of stuff. I mean, these guys are spending, you know, $1,000 for a week to go fish these big tournaments and go try to win money. There's some guys that actually do it for a living. But you go out there and everybody talks to everybody. Everybody is as friendly as they can be. You can screw up and do what I did at Seminole and leave your rods on the dang side of the boat ramp, and there's going to be a post on the Hobie BOS page, hey, so we found these rods inside the boat ramp. Are they yours? Come get them.
It wasn't 30 minutes after you left those rods.
Yeah.
And I saw that post when that happened.
Yeah, and I mean, that would never happen. I mean, it might happen in a bass boat thing, but I doubt it. I mean, these guys, I mean, it's just a totally different, it's such a, the camaraderie of it is what's really good. I mean, it's competitive, but it's not so stupid competitive as we see in the bass boat piece of it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it's pretty awesome, David. You know, we've seen this new Hobie Lynx. We're gonna come back to the swim baits and pick Ashley's brain, but I want to, you know, there's been some people that seem to really like it. You know, what's your thoughts on the new Hobie Lynx, and are we gonna see that appear in SY anytime soon?
We will have 2 of them sometime within the next month or so. I don't know an exact date yet. I'm not even 100% sure which colors we're going to get. I'm really, really wanting one for me.
45 pounds, man.
It's a different deal.
Yeah.
I want to put one on the water and really get a good feel of it. It's going to be a different boat. This is not your traditional kayak. So this is something that they're playing with. It's something totally different, and it's really for those of y'all that have seen Robert's boat that he has. When I say boat, B-O-T-E,
Yeah.
it's they call it a boat rover, and it's a paddleboard, but it's big enough to put like an outboard motor on and everything. But what it is it's a foam board that they then cover in epoxy and fiberglass, and then they put a plastic liner over the top of it. So it's a solid boat. It is not our traditional hollow boat or traditional hollow kayak. Still going to have a 180 drive. Kick-ups.
Wow.
You can take the rudder completely off the boat. So when you load it, you don't have to worry about damaging your boat.
Yeah.
You can swap your rudder control from left to right side on the seats. The seat looks like, and I haven't gotten to see one yet, physically having my hands on one, but the seat looks like it's going to be very equivalent to a PA. So there's some really neat aspects. Now, there's some other pieces to it. You're not going to have the storage components. You're probably going to have to use a crate on the back to hold your rods and some other things. The turning radiuses on it, though, from what you see on some of the videos, are insane.
Tight.
I mean, you pretty much turn it at almost a 90-degree angle.
It looks like a great river or creek boat.
Yeah.
It looks like a great river or creek boat.
Yeah.
And the beauty of it is, at 49, 42, 43, 49 pounds, whatever it ends up being, that's easy to handle. For an old man like me, it'd be a lot easier getting it in and out of the back of that truck than my Outback.
And you can still customize it. You can still add the H rails, the
You can
power
still-
pole. It's got
Yeah.
doesn't have a hole built into it for the spike.
It has a hole built into it for the spike. It has a little piece where you can put H rails on the sides. For those guys that don't do all the little extras like the H rails and stuff, if you want to stack these things, they're built to stack on top of each other. So you can stack them 4 high and put them in the back of a pickup truck. I mean, it has some really great little connotations and some things that you can do with this boat that are going to be pretty killer.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a nice little marriage between a wreck boat and a tournament boat or a fishing boat. So I'm anxious to see one, get my hands on one, and really get to play with it.
Well, I think it came in at a great time. We're starting to see some of these anglers, are going to these tournaments with 2 boats, like a Hobie, something pedal drive, and then something real lightweight, real thin, something to get on the creeks, that backwater area. Granted, it's going to be a pedal drive, but you're still going to be able to get into that skinny water with it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I see it as a perfect segue into kind of this new transition we're seeing with people towing around multiple boats for different scenarios that they might be faced with. So,
And the other piece to that I'm anxious to see, it's more built like a traditional paddleboard. And if you've never been on a paddleboards are much easier to stand on than a kayak is. So the other piece that I'm anxious to see how it's going to handle rougher water. So, but I want to get my hands on one. That's all I have to say about it.
yeah. I personally would like to have one to take down to the beach.
Yeah. It'd be great
because I don't want to haul my PA down there. And,
oh, come on. you don't have to haul a PA down the sandy side of the beach.
I do, but it's usually, not enough room for that. So, at least for rods and all that, it's filled with, chairs and everything.
But we've got that shipment coming. I'm hoping for sometime in end of the month, mid-June, and then of course our PAs aren't going to be here until sometime in July probably. So, but we've only got a few more boats coming, guys, and it's getting slim freaking pickings down there. I have a PA 12 360, a PA 12 Dune, and 2 Outbacks. That's all the Hobies I got left.
And
I've only got
16. Right?
I do have some Dakota Lithium coming. I have some 54s and 100s and some more power boxes because I'm out of power boxes again. So looking forward to having that all back in here. The Dakotas should be here the end of the month. I think they're saying 27th, 24th, somewhere in there. I emailed Patrick today, but he hadn't responded to me on exactly what a date is yet, which he probably doesn't really know. But once they start shipping, that I'll get those. I'll start getting those, giving some folks some calls because I got a lot of that sold already. So.
Gotcha. Well, guys, go up here and get what you need. Still got some Proteus rods.
Still got some Proteus rods. We were going to do a commercial on that today, but since the computer died on us, I got to figure this thing out.
Yeah, we're still working through all these.
Well, that's a new problem.
Yeah,
that thing is not, I mean, we've been using that thing through 2 seasons of hook bone. This is our 4th season using it for primary tackle, so, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
It died tonight, though, so that's not good.
Yeah. We'll get it squared away.
Yeah.
So, Ashley, man, kind of give us an introduction into this, this whole swim bait world. Talk a little bit about the different types of swim baits, glide baits, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's the first thing that I thought of when you asked me to do this yesterday was the rabbit hole that you can go down with swim baits.
Oh yeah.
And that started for me about, right when I got back in to fishing, right around the Wolf River time, right the West Tennessee Bass Jackers, that first tournament I fished. And I'll tell you, I mean, as soon as you buy your first one, I mean, it's a done deal. But really, I mean, so basically you have what I call swimmers, and that's like a multi-jointed hard bait, right? That would be something like a bull shad that David's got. That's the 6-inch bone, probably, or 5-inch, 6-inch bone. Then you have a glide bait, which is, you can. There you go. And you've got those in the shop, right?
We have these in the shop.
Right. And then you've got a glide bait, which is just a one single joint, 2-segment bait. Then you've got your soft baits, which, most of these are jig hooks. Some of them are weedless. And then you've got like your traditional 6, 8, 10-inch HUDs that just have a single jig hook, and they're not weedless. And then you have the top waters, the lift baits like a slammer, or a punker, a lunker punker, something like that. So, I mean, that's really I would say the 4 biggest categories, right? I mean, there's a bunch of subs, there's crank downs, and things of that nature. Mm. But those 4 are really the ones that I look at and that I fish the most often, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of just the ones that I've just kind of glanced at a little bit here and there. You have different diving depths. Some dive a little bit deeper than others. Some, more shallow, stuff like that. Do you primarily focus on that kind of upper water column, or do you have any that dive a little bit deeper? Do you fish that deeper water column at all with these baits?
If I'm fishing a deeper water column with a larger bait, I'm going to fish a soft bait.
Gotcha.
And typically, I mean, and I'll fish these in the summertime and in the wintertime and around really thick grass or wood. But primarily, I focus on the hard baits. Quite honestly, it's probably, if I had to put a percent to it, it'd be 90% hard baits, 10% soft. The reason being is just what I use them for, really. And it's not only to catch a fish, and that's really, when I first got into it, you see all this stuff online. People catching, these double-digit fish out in California and Texas, down in Florida, on these glide baits, on these big swimmers. And that's what I got into it for, is to catch giant fish. Well, come to find out, it's not all that easy. And you're going to have, I felt like I was chasing muskie. You're going to have 5 outings where you don't even get bit.
Yeah.
Right.
And it wore on me, quite honestly. But what I did discover in that whole process is what a big fish will do when you bring this by, its house.
Yeah.
And that is really what it's morphed into for me. There are some baits that I can count on that they will bite, on a pretty consistent basis. But if I'm pre-fishing, I love nothing more than to tie on, a depths 250, to tie on, a big 8-inch swimmer like this, strong shad that Matt Lures makes, and fish it in the top, really 2-3 feet at the most, deep. And I fish them fast.
Yeah.
I do not fish them slow. I know a lot of guys will slow down with them when they spend all day throwing them. But I'm just trying to get that reaction bite, mainly when I'm fishing them.
Yeah. What's does weather conditions, water clarity, does that come into a factor for you? Like most baits, they do. What color you choose, what size you choose. How do you kind of break that down? Or how do you choose which bait you want to?
I would say it's more of a seasonal thing than anything. First off, the nastiest weather days are the best days to throw a big bait.
Yeah.
Nasty, windy, rainy, ugly spring days. Same with fall days. That is when I will actually try to concentrate and throw it more throughout the day. And I'm not using it just so much as a search bait. I really will try to catch fish on it. As far as colors, it's really the same as if picking a fluke or picking a spinnerbait or picking a jig. The clearer the water, the sunnier it is, you want to go more natural. The dirtier the water, you're going to lean towards those darker colors, those blacks, those reds, pink, pink glide bait, something like that. But in those instances where that weather's not, if the wind's not blowing, if there's not a little bit of cloud cover, I'm using them mainly as a search bait, quite honestly.
Right.
And you will stick sometimes. You'll get fortunate. But I will guarantee it will open your eyes up to the followers, and they call them followers, the fish that come out and take a look at these baits.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
You'll be
Look at it, but they don't come eat it. They just come and just, hey, yeah, okay, that's what I want to see.
Yeah. Yep. And to that point is, I can name several examples, but like Gibson County tournament about 2-3 years ago, I was throwing this exact bait, and I marked 2 fish. They just came up and closed mouthed hit it. One closed mouthed hit it, and one just rolled on it in 2 different parts of the lake. And I was able to go back the next day.
Caught them?
Caught them.
Wow.
Caught them on a spinnerbait.
Wow, that was gonna be my next question. How many times do you see where you have a follower, you go back during the tournament and you actually catch that fish?
I mean, it's inconsistent.
Yeah.
I mean, how a big fish can ghost you in a second. They can just up and leave. But I feel good about it Friday night when I'm sleeping, and I'm going to bed like, I saw that 22-incher. You feel good about it, and the point is, if you go back and you catch that fish 20% of the time, that's the fish that a lot of times will put you in first rather than fifth.
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, we see that every time.
Yeah.
Just that one fish, it's that difference maker.
Absolutely. I mean, anybody in that tournament at Pickwick, anybody in the top 7, if they would have caught a 22-inch fish, they would have won.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That's it. Great questions, by the way.
Yeah. So you got some bluegill patterns. You got some shad patterns.
Mm-hmm.
Do you match the hash? I mean, I know you love Browns Creek.
Yeah.
Do you fish a lot of bluegill pattern there? Since that's kind of
Yeah.
Now we're getting
now we know why we're getting invited.
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not meaning to ask you questions you don't want to answer. So
No. I'm an open book. I don't keep the secrets. I'll tell you, if you pull up to me and I've got a 22-inch fish, and I'll tell you, hey, buzzbait, hey, jig, black and blue, half ounce.
Right.
I don't care. Bluegill. I've caught them on shad patterns there, but big bass hate bluegill. They'll consume them. They'll eat them. Don't get me wrong. But I think I've thought about it in my mind as like a lion to a hyena. Like you see these wild, National Geographic shows where you see these the relationship between a lion and a hyena. I mean, they don't necessarily eat the hyenas. Really, they won't. Right. They just want to kill them.
They just want to kill them. Yeah.
Get out of my house.
Right. And they take that. I think they really take that same attitude that I see out there in the water. I mean, when this little dude comes by, I mean, especially in the spring, that's a no-brainer because they're going to mess with their beds and their spawning, right? But when this little guy comes by, they're going to hit it. And if they swing on this, a lot of times, I mean, I've caught them. I foul hooked a bunch of big fish. Just them getting mad and hitting at it.
Right.
Not necessarily going to eat it. I mean, you hear people say, well, the profile's too big, and I know this isn't a giant bait by any means in the swim bait world. It's 2.5 ounces, maybe pushing 5 inches. But I mean, what 22-inch fish do you know that couldn't stuff that thing in their mouth?
That's a snack.
Right.
I mean, when you say that, and when you talk about that, I mean, you talk about them just kind of slapping at it, that kind of thing. I honestly believe that bass at times will do that kind of stuff. It's just a form of entertainment. And I say this with some reason and some experience. So we used to have a pond in Mississippi when my little girl was small, and in that pond I was like, well, I'm gonna put some F1s in here. So I go and I order some F1 strain bass from American Sportfish. They come in the little FedEx package. We run them down to the lake. We go to dump all these 150 F1s into the lake, and my daughter, I'm going to keep a couple of them put in the aquarium. I'm going to keep a couple of them. Okay, fine, whatever. So we took them home. We stuck them in the aquarium with a couple of goldfish, with some goldfish. You know, I had probably 8 or 10 little goldfish in there. And we fed them grass, shrimp, and we fed them stuff till they got about the same size as the goldfish. And I come in one day, and that bass had done 8 of goldfish as big as him and was swimming around in the tank with tail sticking out the back of his throat. And then the next one did the same thing. Within a week, I had no goldfish anymore. We just had 2 F1s sitting in there that had grown like 3 times their size in a week. So, but after that fish got a little bigger, and after those bass got bigger, I took one out because they were getting too big for the tank, and I kept one. But we would put goldfish in there, and he would eat what he wanted immediately. Just, he'd eat 5 or 6 of them. And then every once in a while, you'd see him come up to one of them and just kind of look at it, and he'd open his mouth, suck that goldfish in, and then just blow it right back out. He'd swim back to behind it a little bit.
Just let him know I can get you.
Suck that goldfish back in, blow him back out. And then he might run over there, he might grab it by the tail and swim around the tank with this goldfish patting him upside the face and just be swimming around just as content. And you could see like this evil little smirk on his face, like, yep, I'm just having a good time. And you'd have a tank full of goldfish that were dead within a couple of days. He didn't eat none of them. He just killed them all, just to kill them. So there's something to be said about that.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they're just doing it just for fun. It's their entertainment.
So bass have a sense of humor.
They get bored.
Hey.
I'm gonna start telling some jokes out on the water. Maybe they'll buy
That's right.
Or I just might be looked at like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Hey. I'll take a bite how I can get it. I don't care what their reasoning is. Could care less.
So even that depth, you fish that pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. So and you know, with baits like this too, one of the things I thought about on the way over here was it's intimidating to start throwing baits like this. And anybody that's listening or watching that's interested in doing this or just giving it a try, start out with a bait like David has over there,
yeah.
or a bait like, you know, be perfectly honest. I mean, this is an itty bitty swim bait.
That's easy.
What is that one?
This is a hard gill. This is just the baby cousin to this one. This is a baby hard gill. This is a hard gill. This is the first swim bait I ever bought. This is what I caught my biggest kayak fish on at Browns Creek. 24 and a quarter. Ate this little bluegill. Buy you a 1 ounce to 1.5 ounce hard bait, just a jointed swimmer. It doesn't have to be 3-piece. It doesn't have to be 4-piece. It doesn't matter. Just go and buy one of these and get used to throwing something a little bit heavier. Because to me now, this is like, you know, throwing a little pop R. Same with this. But in the beginning, you know, it seemed like a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it was pretty intimidating. They splash down, and you're like, you know, and then when you progress up to this, you know, you're like, how do I cast that thing? But you'll get used to it. But I would start small. Don't jump into 6, 7, 8 ounce bait.
Right.
Start small. Get used to it, because as you progress to larger baits, you really have to learn. It's almost like a fly cast. You know, when you're casting your fly rod, you're casting the line, and you have to let that rod load behind you. It's the same thing with these big baits. If you go to flick it like a pop-R or a fluke or whatever else, you're going to break it off, or you're going to break your rod, or it's going to go 10 feet. You got to let that bait load up behind you, and then let that inertia, you know, work for you with the rod. Let it load up and fire it out there. I forgot the original question, Justin. I just get off on these tangents. But so with these big glides, so let's talk glide baits. So basically, I'll fish this fast. I'll fish it a lot of times just like a spook under right. I never let this thing out of my sight. And I'll fish it just like a spook. I'll walk it back and forth. And I don't use rod pops like you would a spook. I just use reel pops, just quarter to half turn, depending on what size glide you're using.
Okay.
I just use reel pops, and this thing will walk, and it's a lot wider than a spook. Now, if you slow it down, that's another retrieve, just a moderate, fast retrieve, and you're just going to get a nice wide glide. This is the best gliding bait ever made, in my opinion. There's some maybe heavier, bigger that do glide a little better, but not that I've tried, and I've done a lot of them. Just a nice, steady, slow, moderate retrieve, and then you'll mix in those reel pops, quarter turn, half turn, like a slow, moderate, fast retrieve, and then pop, pop, and it'll and glide out, right, and then stop, and then start your retrieve again, and then pop, pop. And a lot of times, if there is a fish that's behind it or following it, that's when they're going to come in.
Yeah.
And you want to make those motions, you want to do those reel pops and those twitches when you're right at that juiciest spot around cover. Right off that grass point, right next to that bush that sticks out a little bit more than all the others. That's when you want it to stop or pause or twitch. But those are mainly the two retrieves that I'll use. I keep it really simple. I will mess around with it more on the water if I'm experimenting, but just that's what I like to do. That's what I found works best in drawing now.
How deep is that one dive?
It's as deep as you want it to.
Okay.
So really, you can, I throw this bait right here. I'll throw it on 20-pound Abrazex fluorocarbon line. It weighs 6 ounces, and it sinks slow. So you have to be patient. These guys that really fish them out west in these lakes that you have 20 foot of visibility. Like the Butch Browns, you count these things down 20, 25 foot of water, and it's just a slow, moderate retrieve that they'll use, and it just glides back and forth, back and forth. So you can add weight to them. Little tungsten weights, that have the little stickers on them. I don't know if y'all have seen those.
Yeah.
I think I've got a couple of them on here. You probably can't see them from here, but this is a slow sink bait, and I just added some tungsten. It's almost like putty.
Yeah.
Just to keep it down, because I like to burn these baits and fish them fast, so it'll keep it down so they don't come up to the surface and blow out.
Right.
But with those glides, most of those are slow sinks. You can buy them in floaters, you can buy them in fast sink, but majority of them that you see out there that you can get your hands on are slow sink.
We were talking a little bit before, and you were talking about how you can modify the skins of them.
Yeah.
Different skins for that one in particular.
Yeah. So with this depths, this is a new one. Well, it's an old bait, but I'm not crazy about the colors that they offer. And I just took the skin off. You just get some warm soapy water, and you just soak it in there for a moment. Use a flathead screwdriver, and you can pry these skins off. You obviously have to take the hooks off in the split ring. You pry these skins off, and I just use some construction tape or art tape from Hobby Lobby, just to make it in a color. I want some black and gold, some green and blue and silver, just to mimic basically a shad. It also looks like a bit of a herring to me, a skipjack a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I want these to look, for the way I fish them, as natural as possible. I'm not going to be throwing the pink glide baits and things that I mentioned earlier. I want them to just look as natural as possible for what I use them for. So yeah, there's all sorts of modifications you do to feathered hooks and things like that. So.
Gotcha. So rod, reel, line setup. You mentioned the line. You got your rod here with you. What's your?
Yeah. So real simple. When I'm throwing a glide bait, it's usually 17 or 20 pound fluorocarbon, Abrazex.
Yep.
When I'm throwing a swimmer, these style baits, a bull shad, same thing, 17 or 20 pound fluorocarbon Abrazex.
You never use braid?
I will use braid on top waters. I'll use braid to mono on like an MS Slammer, or like a big top water like a punker. I hadn't really done those much, so I don't want to speak to them. Like a shower blows, the shower blows evergreen that everybody loves throwing. They make a giant one of those that I have. It's a 150 millimeters, 6 inches.
Yeah.
and I'll throw that on braid tomorrow. So with soft baits, though, braid to fluorocarbon, 20 pound fluorocarbon usually is what I use. You can up it if you don't feel comfortable. It's really what you feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
But I like the braid with these because I will tell you, even though these baits are designed with air chambers and pockets for them to break down easier, you have got to really set the hook harder with this bait than you do any jig, any frog.
Yeah.
You have no idea until you have to set the hook on one of these, really just how hard you need to set it. You got to have the drag locked down. You can't play. And I'll use the rods that I'll use for throwing them. Obviously, I mean, it's a no-brainer with a soft bait, setting the hook harder, you're going to use more of a heavy, extra heavy. With these treble hook baits and glide baits, that's a medium. This is a medium heavy, and I can throw up to a 6-ounce bait on that. It's a custom rod, F5 custom rods, and he does conventional rods as well. But the blank is spiraled in a way that you can throw heavier stuff on it, even though it's medium heavy. But it's got that bend. You know, the big word now with treble hook baits and with chatter baits is that, you know, parabolic give to it, to where once it loads up, it stays loaded.
Right.
Because the last thing you want to do is I mean, the fish has all the leverage in the world they want with this 4.5-ounce bait here. So you want it to stay loaded up. So I'll definitely, on these treble hook baits, go with a rod that's going to give.
Gotcha.
For sure.
What length is that rod that you have there?
That's 7.5 foot. And another tip I'll give too is when you're throwing these starting out, I mean, literally, take your jig rod, take a medium heavy, take a heavy rod. You can throw a 5-inch bull shad on a jig rod.
Oh yeah.
You can, just to get started, to get a feel of it. But as you get into some of these bigger rods, you're going to want these a longer handle. I think this is probably 18, maybe 20-inch handle, and these doorknob type grips down here. It helps because, like I was telling you, when you make those casts and you're throwing that big 6-ounce bait, you have to allow to load up, and you really, I mean, you have to two-hand cast it.
Yeah.
You really do those bigger baits.
Yeah.
The smaller ones you can flick around once you get used to it. Yeah. And then reels, just real quick. Something with a big handle. That's just more for hook sets. You feel more comfortable with the reel pops with these big handles too. That's something I found with these big doorknob handles. Because when you have that big bait and you're just trying to make subtle twitches and movements with it under the water, you don't want to change your rod position. And I started trying to maneuver the bait that way in the beginning. And it's just really just half turns to quarter turns will get the job done.
Yeah.
And these handles like this make all the difference in the world. They really do.
So I take it this is not your full arsenal.
No.
You're holding out on us.
Yeah, just I mean a little bit. But honestly, to go back to when I first started, I had so many of these baits. I purged them 2 years ago. I wanted to fish them full time, and I got into, I'm going to say season 2 or 3 with West Tennessee bass yackers, and I really started the season committed to throwing bigger baits. And truth to be told, it just doesn't work most of the time.
Yeah.
In catching these 20+ inch fish in a tournament setting.
All right.
So I've modified it. I've really dwindled it down dramatically to my favorites and the ones that have the drawing power, and that's what I stick with now. I don't have half the baits I used to have. I don't have as many rods as I used to have. And when I go out on tournament day, if I have a big bait rod, it's only one. Yeah, that's all I'll take. I'll take one like this one, and just to have it to draw those fish out. Just try it. That's all I have to say to you guys watching that haven't done it. You will be amazed by the fish you start seeing.
Well, I imagine in the very beginning getting into it, it's probably really hard leaving that rod, that bait at home. You probably wanted to have it with you out there because you just know. I mean, you're into it. You're excited about it and everything.
Yeah.
So now, did you you said you found a fish or you had one follow you at Pickwick in practice?
Yeah, that wasn't on a swim bait. Yeah, that was on conventional gear. but she wasn't home the next day.
Yeah.
But we talked about ghosting you.
Yeah.
She was gone.
Yeah, they're moving right now. So when you take one of those out during practice, I mean, I know the hooks add weight, help bounce it deep. Will you take the hooks off, during practice, or do you just leave them on?
I'll leave them on. And a lot of the times, the big reason that I will is because, fish will not, like we've talked about, they don't always commit to these things. So I'll leave them on. They do mess with the sink rate quite a bit too if you take the hooks off.
Yeah.
And the split rings, but I could add weight, but other baits, conventional baits, I will remove hooks pre-fishing. But with these, 99% of the time, I leave them on. I don't really worry about it. And quite honestly, if the 26-incher ever comes up and does want to commit to it,
I'm gonna take it in.
I'm not messing around with having a chance to catch a fish that big. So I'm gonna leave the hooks on for that reason.
Because it might ghost you the next day.
Right.
Probably will.
Yes, for certain.
Yeah. Man, that's really interesting, dude. I mean, you've really broken it down. I mean, it's real in depth, dude. Is that primarily a clear water type deal, or do you ever throw it in dirtier water?
Oh, I'll throw them in dirty water all day long.
Really?
Yeah. And the way I fish them in the shallower water, when a lot of times when the water gets dirty around here, it's up, and those fish are pushed up. The ones I'm chasing anyway. These I joke about it. These are my Lowrance. This is my fish finder.
Your live scope.
Right. For those guys that don't have electronics and don't want to get into them, get yourself a couple of big swim baits and go out and you'll find a lot of big fish.
Well, I've heard. Tell me if I'm wrong here, but I've heard that the best time to throw these really big baits is when it's really, really cold. The colder the water, the better.
Yeah, the glide baits are really good producers in late winter into early spring. That's when they'll actually commit to them. But, then again, I guess they kind of get that aggressive nature with conventional baits that time of year too. The big soft plastic swim baits are the ones, and I haven't spent a lot of time doing that. I wish I could speak more to it. But in the dead of winter, just to sit out at Brown's and just slow crank an 8-inch Hud or a bait like this, a lot of guys catch fish doing that. And I mean, we're talking creeping it. Fish it slow and then fish it, they say, slow down after that. Just creeping it along the bottom. But I wish I could speak to that. I just don't have as much experience with that in the cold water. So,
how much drawing power does it have? Like if a fish is sitting out off the end of the point, 25 feet. And that's kind of up near the upper water column, clear water. Will it draw those fish all the way up like that?
100%. If there's a brush pile down, I mean, if one of the best times to throw these in pre-fishing when you're just getting skunked, you can't figure anything out, that's the best time to pick up a huge swim bait and just go to searching. Kind of like probably what you would do, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're having trouble figuring them out or finding them, you're going to get on that graph. And you're going to go try to mark some spots and try to find them. Hey, they moved here, they shifted there. I'll pick one of those up and throw it over the end of a point. If there's a big fish there, not every time, but a lot of times they come up and they'll look at it. The funniest story, I was throwing this in pre-fish at Bay Springs, a big glide bait, and you would not believe how many spotted bass. I mean, the spots in that lake are crazy aggressive anyway. But they will come up in schools at Bay Springs, 8, 9, 10 spotted bass, little 15, 16 inchers, following this 10-inch bait. And they're all taking turns just nipping at it, just running it off. It's like who's going to eat it first? Who's going to eat it first?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you'd be also super surprised by how many little fish you catch on these giant that will actually commit to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I've hooked fish on swim baits that the swim bait was literally the same size, if not bigger than the fish.
Yeah.
But yeah, those really tough, sun's out, no wind, 95 degrees, you're sitting in water with 8 foot of visibility over the end of a point. throw this thing across it, and you'll find out if there's fish there a lot of times. You really will.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying you can get them to bite on something else, but you at least
You
know
that they're there.
that they're there. You're not going crazy when you're drafting them saying, are those carp? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I did that. Was experiencing that on Friday. I'm like, man, I see some dots down there, but they're so spread out. I couldn't really tell. They could be drone. You don't really know. I mean, some fish you can tell what they are, but until they're not bass. But man, that's an interesting concept to use them as search baits. I mean, to find the fish.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of a replacement of a graph, and I realize it doesn't work all the time, but
Right.
But man, you get comfortable with it. You use it at the right time. You use it enough. It really becomes a critical tool in your arsenal. I imagine.
It really does, in your mindset. Just, I mean, how confident are you when you go out and you actually can see that 20-incher with your own eyes?
Mm-hmm.
The day before you hit a lake for a tournament.
Yeah.
It's a confidence booster. It really is. And like I said, you can go back and get those fish to commit to something else.
I mean, you're just not going to get that with like a chatterbait or something like that. I mean, they're just going to hit or not. You're not going to see them hardly ever.
Mm-hmm. Fish can be in a negative. Fish are in a positive mood, a neutral mood, or negative mood in my mind, right? And if they're neutral to negative, if you reel a chatterbait at 10 feet and they're sitting in 12 feet of water, they're not going to move an inch if they're negative. You reel that over their head and they're in a neutral or negative mood, there's a decent chance they'll come up and take a look at it. Just this
size
is you're dangling a cheeseburger in their face.
This is, and it could be a territorial thing too. I mean, a 20+ inch largemouth is not, that in most waters, that is the prime predator. That's the king, unless you've got a lake full or a river full of muskie or pike or whatever else, then they have to be on the lookout. But this is my neighborhood. I'm gonna go check that out. What is this?
Yeah.
So
it's like Mom, she's gonna look out the window and see who's making all that noise.
Exactly. And when these things land, they know it's in there. I mean, it's like a dead duck falling out of the sky when it lands. So,
man, you brought one with you today. We're gonna do a little giveaway, guys.
Yep.
Man, this has been awesome, dude. I mean, I've learned a lot.
I'm learning a little bit too.
I mean, this old Texas rig over here. We might be hard.
Hey, that's how I call it the Texas rig.
I own a couple of bull shads. I don't throw them a whole heck of a lot. Every once in a while, I'll pick one up. My Matt saw me throw one out of a kayak at Gibson last year. So I will pick one up and throw it every once in a while. It's not something but when I do, I'm trying to find the right size fish.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking for.
Absolutely.
I've gotten mostly into the bigger, the hand pours. I love the hand pours, small town bass, and he makes a really good one.
He has got some really cool stuff he's been working on.
Yeah.
So I mean, everybody keep their eye. That's some original stuff he's doing.
He's got a new bait out. It's made from a different material. It's real durable. It stretches out. Stretch Armstrong, that sucker. So it's going to last a long time. I think it's a line through. He's got a couple different models. So check out smalltownbassin.com. Or on his Facebook page as well, STB Small Town Bassin. What is this little deal you got here, though? Is this a line through?
No. This is a Citizen. It's made by a guy named Mike Gilbert out in Southern California. Working Class Zero is his brand. And I just thought it'd be really neat to give those away. Those baits are basically next to impossible to get.
Really?
Yeah.
Sure you want to get them?
Yes, I do, and that's why I want to give them away. Is share them. It's one of the best soft swim baits out there. Just the years of R&D he's put into them. And it's just extremely innovative. The hollow, he calls it the Chaos Air Chamber, I think, and it rigs with a 6/0 Beast.
Okay.
1/4 ounce, something like that would be perfect.
Is it slit? Oh yeah, it's slit.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's absolutely it's built. The camera can't see that, but it's built for, y'all can see it, for that weight on the owner beast hook. Show them that, David.
Is that showing up on the camera?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually cut to fit an owner beast. The bait was made around that hook. So if you want a weedless swim bait, I mean, this is basically top notch, one of the best out there. So.
One question before we do this giveaway about these. Do any guys kind of put any kind of lubrication in here to kind of help that hook slide through there on the hook set?
You could. I mean, I know guys cram scent in them, like smelly jelly, something like that, and that would do that.
Yeah.
But really with these, the way he's designed them, there's a lot less plastic for that hook to have to penetrate.
Okay.
This chamber inside here is really, it's an air. It's completely wide open and it collapses.
Yeah.
I mean, you still have to set the hook now. I'm not saying,
You said 20 pound. I was expecting maybe 30 pound. Especially on a big 6-8 ounce. I know you're not setting the hook real hard on those, but.
Yeah, and with the line is like, that AbrazeX. I don't know if any of y'all watching have used AbrazeX, but it's, 17 or 20 pound abrasive. It's ski rope to me.
Yeah, it's stout stuff.
And I mean, you want to use that fluorocarbon obviously because mono. Even fluorocarbon stretches out a ton when you're throwing these big baits. And it doesn't take 20, 30 minutes of casting a 6-ounce bait, and you notice that first 8 foot, 6 foot, 5 foot of your line is getting stretched out, and you'll peel off, retie. But yeah, no, 20 pound fluoro, you're fine. Crank that drag down and let them have it.
Gotcha. Man, that's interesting stuff, dude. Well, man, we got a full half of the season left. West Tennessee Bass Yackers. I know you're hunting me down.
Look, the hot months are if there's not a good topwater bite, I'm in trouble.
My man here, he thinks he's slick. He's calling me up after the tournament. He's trying to get in my head. I know what he's doing. Like, man, dude, you're really wearing you got 3 more points on me today.
Yeah.
We love the competition. It's fun,
great.
man.
It makes you better.
It does.
It does. It makes you better. So the better fishermen you have to fish against, it makes you better.
That's what I love about this group, man. And you can see it year over year. People get better and better. They come back. They come hungry.
Yeah.
We visit the same lakes every year that are a lot of fun. We visit some new places and stuff, but man, it's just a family. We just love competition. Fun competition, friendly.
But we're getting better. We're gonna get that cast paddle
We're
one
gonna
day.
get the paddle. Yeah. So, well, man, we're gonna be giving away these Citizens, and I'm throwing in these 5-inch small town bassin hand pours, and then also the 3 3/4 inchers as well. And we got a little bit of a questionnaire for you guys. First person to answer this: what was the brand of swim bait that Lee Livesey used to win Lake Fork? It wasn't the only lure, but what was the brand of swim bait that he used to catch over 40 pounds of bass
in one day?
Lake Fork?
So everything I said about swim baits not being the sole reason or sole bait to throw is out the window when somebody goes like that and just catches a 7.5, 8 pound average of fish.
That was, and I think Patrick Walters caught over 42 on the final day. I was reading about it earlier.
It just ridiculous.
All right, we'll say it one more time for those that didn't hear. The brand of swim bait that Lee Livesey used to win Lake Fork event just here recently, 2021 Elite Series.
Lake
Fork.
We've talked about this a couple times on this show and the other show, so
yeah,
that still amazed the crap out of me. Rising Sun.
You got the make.
Yeah.
You got the make.
Or actually, that's a model.
Yeah,
that's a model. Who makes the Rising Sun?
Right on it, AJ. You got to finish up. What's the manufacturer?
Amanda's on Google right now.
316.
Trent Harris.
316.
Congratulations.
Good job Googling that, Trent. Well done.
AJ got it right after.
I'm gonna witness you throwing these baits whenever you ever put down your pup.
Oh yeah, where's the next tournament? Herb Parsons. Trent, I want to see this citizen or the small town bass and baits in the water at Herb Parsons.
There you go.
So congratulations, Trent, guys. Man, we appreciate y'all tuning in. This was educational, fun, and
Had a blast.
dude, we're so glad you
Thank
came
you for
out and
doing
hung
it.
out with us, man.
fun.
Just an upstanding guy, great angler. So, man, we're about to sign out. Dave, you got anything else?
No, not a whole lot. I mean, come see us. Got a bunch of hammer rods in today. We still got a great selection of everything in right now. We still are in really, really good shape. And everything from tungsten to plastics to, we got some more Strike King in the other day. We got a bunch of frogs in for you guys that like to throw a frog. You know, everybody knows one of my favorite baits to throw. So, and it's the right time to be throwing all that. So, come see us.
Yeah, and I mean, anybody that kind of lives up there around Jackson, call him up if he's got something that you want. I'll bring it to you to the tournament. Myself or Matt or David if he's fishing at an event. But
That was close
these
enough.
guys.
I will at least be there for the first 3 hours or so.
You better be there for the full 8 hours. I heard.
I have a business to run. I have 2 businesses to run.
True that. True that.
So I have to do. Look, I missed a trip to Gunnersville this weekend, so I know what I won that day. But anyway,
Well, that's going to be a good tournament. Herb Parsons has got. I mean, it's a small lake, guys, but it's got some big
it's
fish.
got some
in it.
big fish in it.
And,
been fishing
and quite
well.
a few fish in it too. It's a healthy lake. They've been stocking it with 4 string, so don't miss out on that one, guys. But we're gonna sign out.
Yep.
All
Thank
right.
you, guys.
Be
We
good,
had
y'all.
fun, and we'll see
Thank
you in
you.
the next one.
In line with you.